Hello everyone! Today I'm sketching this beautiful door using ink and watercolour. This is from an image I found on Pinterest. I start by marking out the base of the door with some dots. Here I'm comparing the width of the door to the height using the pencil as a measuring tool. So the height was around 2 times the width. Then I've drawn a rectangle, then marked where the hinges go, just over halfway up the door. Next, the centre line of the door, which helps with keeping the symmetry of the drawing. I think because the paper is quite rough textured, I was working my pencil lines back and forth so I could see them. Really, I should have kept them light as they're going to be inked over soon and rubbed out. This is a new watercolour pad. It's unbranded and it's 100% cotton made in China, A5 size, that I found on Amazon. And it's about £7, just over £7, so it's really good value. So here I go with the inking. I'm using a 0.5mm Unipin fine liner. I did have a 0.8mm fine liner, but my grandson stole it from me for his anime drawings. This is me trying not to be too detailed. One of the reasons why I wanted to have a go at this style of work was because my usual paintings and drawings are really detailed, and I wanted to do some quicker, looser pieces. Maybe it'll come to me. This is also the first page in my book, so I guess I was being a little bit precious. I always think when you get a new sketchbook, the first page, you can be a bit scared. I've seen some people advising you maybe to just start in the middle and not start on the first page, just like get over that psychological block you've got. But I don't know. I've started on the first page. Here I'm using broken lines, which look much better than solid lines. The breaks correspond with the stones. I decided not to draw every stone I could see in the wall, and I think with practicing and experimenting I'll get better in deciding how much and where and when to use detail. I've also got this thing about using as much of the paper as possible. That's why I was pretty careful measuring the size to start with. I flipped the sketchbook to the side, which made it so much easier to draw the planks on the door, again using broken lines. Then a quick erase to get rid of the pencil lines, and on to my favourite bit, the watercolour. Here I'm using my old Daler Rowney watercolour pocket set. I think it's probably about 30 years old. Oh god, I'm so old. So I'm mixing a light green with lemon and sap to start with on the foliage. Painting in the lighter areas first and then gradually darker, and the mid-tones in sap green and viridian for the shadow areas. It's really effective if you paint a few floating leaves so they're not joined to the rest of the shrubbery. Now I'm using my most favourite grey mix, which is burnt sienna or any other reddy brown, and cobalt blue or any other, well, cobalt blue's like a blue with a bit of red in, is it? For a light wash for the stone surrounds. And I add more blue for a darker shadow colour, and more burnt sienna will give a warmer browner colour. I really like this mix because a lot of the times as well it starts separating out and granulating, and it produces some really cool textures, but it didn't do it this time with this painting. A little spritz of water to soften the paint and also to create a little bit of texture on the stones. Then I mix viridian with Prussian blue to get a teal colour, which the stones, some of the stones in the wall were like a slatey, bluey, tealy colour. So I leave some gaps around the bricks to suggest where the mortar is. I've just added a bit more Prussian blue to the teal mix for the door, making sure to leave gaps for the red paint showing through. I mixed up vermilion and alizarin crimson to paint the parts where the old paint is showing through, where the newer paint's peeled off. I mix a darker teal to get more range in the tones and paint the shadow areas. I painted the bulk too dark, so dabbed it with kitchen roll to lighten it up. The darkest bit was the top of the door, and here I mixed some ivory black in. I cleaned off my brush and with a damp brush just blended the edge of the shadow so that it's not a harsh line on the door. And then it's back in with a pen to reinforce and render the darker parts of the painting. I used a brush pen, a Unipin brush pen, and it's just a case of looking at your reference picture and like really reinforcing the darker areas so you get a bit of contrast. The watercolour does dull some of the ink lines, so you need to go in and rework some areas. For thicker lines, use the brush pen slightly on the side of the nib. A bit of dry brush technique to create some texture. As watercolour dries lighter, I can now see where areas need darkening. So I'm pretty pleased with this. I could probably up the contrast a bit more in some areas, but you get to a point where you've had enough, and I left it. You know, I think it's better not labouring too much, because I think it must have taken me about an hour and 20 minutes or something to do this, and really I'm aiming for maybe a 30-minute painting of this size, but I've got to keep practicing and I'll get there eventually. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching this. I know I must apologise for the focus. Sometimes my camera focuses on the wrong things, so I hope it's not too distracting, the fact that it's not in focus. And hopefully I'll see you in my next video. So bye for now. Thanks for watching.